Welcome back, everyone, to the channel. Tonight's terrifying hiking story is about this one in the Midwest that only has one rule that you have to abide by. No one under the age of 13 is allowed to step foot on its soil. Stay tuned because after we're going to dive into this, we're going to give our 2 cents and really try to figure out what the hell is going on. Stick around and enjoy. Deep in the northern parts of the Midwest, there exists a national park. This by itself isn't exactly news to anyone remotely familiar with the U.S. Much the same, it's hardly news that within a national park, it's absolute metric ton of trails, nature paths, campsites, you name it. But if you go to this park, you'll find the standard trademarks that permeate through every nature reserve and public space across the country. Pine, the odd sweetness of sap mixed with indistinguishable sugary snacks. A guy who clearly needs to shower, and the dew of a morning rain upon the trees. The sight of gorgeous canopies of trees, nature ponds, rivers, and hills. The early morning chill giving way to scorching heat, then back into the cool comforts of night. All accounted for, all present, all expected. None of that stuff is why I'm writing. Don't get me wrong, Abernathy Pine Conservation Park is absolutely gorgeous and absolutely worth your time. But if you decide to come here, just be warned that any parents, guardians, heck, anyone tasked with the care of a children needs to stay away from one trail in particular. Abernathy and Susan's hiking trail is strictly off limits to anyone under the age of 13. So stay away from it at all costs. If you don't, odds are good that you're never going to see them again. I know this because for the last 20 years I have been employed as a park ranger for Abernathy Pine Conservation. My job for nearly the entirety of my employment had been to patrol that trail during the off hours, to serve as a gatekeeper during the on hours, and to strictly monitor who goes in, who comes out, and if they come home. This is not a matter of exclusivity. It is not a matter of elitism. It is a matter of protecting your children. Now, for any reasonably responsible parents who might have read that and immediately had a panic attack, the good news is that it's impossible to wander onto the trail by accident. None of the other hiking paths feed into it or cross over it. There's only one designated entrance, and that is heavily locked down by a reinforced chain-linked fence, a separate chain secured with a padlock over that, spikes atop the fence to discourage climbers, and of course, yours truly standing guard not 5 feet away. We take security and safety of all of our guests seriously, doubling when it comes to Abernathy and Susan hiking trail. So to the worried guardians out there, don't worry. You can't miss it. You're not going to lose your kid because you took your eyes off him for 2 seconds and they stepped onto the forbidden trail while you weren't looking. Of course, even ironclad rules like that aren't always enough to dissuade people. Some folks, even with the inclusion of these specific rules, try to argue that their kids should be allowed on the trail. Notice how I didn't say idiots or morons. That's because most people trying to make exceptions aren't trying to be rule breakers or push their own idea of self-importance. They are just trying to include the little ones on the older historical trails in the park. My little one's gonna be in this little chest here, so they won't be walking. We actually have a stroller designed for uneven trails, so he'll be fine. He's actually on track at his elementary school, so he's plenty used to long treks. I've heard it all before, and my response is the exact same every single time. It's not a matter of your children getting tired. It's simply not safe. I'm afraid you will have to find another hiking trail if you want to bring your kids along. The reasonable ones almost honor that boundary. They may look sad or disappointed. The young ones who understand what I'm saying might even get upset or tear up a bit. Heck, some of the kids might even ask if they did something wrong or if they were bad. But at the end of the day, they accept it, even if they don't understand why. These are the easy ones, and as much as it sucks to turn away well-meaning families, I'll take that 100 times over the morons who think our rules are just a suggestion. Most of the time, these delinquents are teenagers trying to sneak little Timmy over the fence because they don't want to ruin their plans simply for the unreasonable expectations of actually watching their siblings. Or parents who say their kids are 13, when in reality, they're 2 weeks away from being that age because that's close enough or some nonsense. These jokers are more irritating to deal with, and more than once have resulted in screaming matches, insults, and even the occasional assault. Even the best of them issued all manner of informal complaints, saying I was rude or not reasonable, or some of them even straight up lie and say that I attacked them when they tried to reason with me. Thank the Lord Almighty, my superiors always throw those complaints out once they realize what trail I was barring them from. I tell you all this for two main reasons. The first, obviously, is to serve as a warning for any would-be hikers or guests. The ones who are just looking for a fun activity with their young sons, daughters, brothers, or sisters. The second is to provide the necessary backdrop for a story that took place roughly 18 years ago on a chilly spring morning during the late aughts. I just turned 25 about 3 days before the incident. At the time, I wasn't even the one in charge of watching over Abernathy and Susan. Heck, even 2 years in, I barely even knew the trail existed. That job fell to crusty old Edgar, a bit of a relic who had been at the park for a whooping 27 years by the time I had signed on as a ranger. Much like I am now, Edgar was a massive stickler for the rules and was an absolute monster of a guy, standing almost 6.5 feet tall, with 220 pounds of pure muscle. Pretty sure the guy was ex-military, and let me tell you, he looked it. Mean scowl, strong stance, and a non-nonsense attitude that told you break any of the rules was borderline lunacy with him around. Most of my responsibilities back then just involved basic patrolling, checking with other rangers to see if they needed help, and paperwork. Lots and lots of paperwork. I could honestly say I dreaded stepping into our cabin offices more than encountering black bears over the course of those first 2 years, and I was happy to be called away for a kiosk check or a trail walk. Heck, even changing out the trash bags was preferable to that nightmare. You want to know how bad it was? I would literally pray for a call on the radio to disperse a rowdy patrol just so I didn't have to look over the 10,000th page of whatever. That morning, I got exactly what I wished for. I got a call over the radio from Edgar, over the radio, that he was dealing with a particularly rough family that just wouldn't take no for an answer, and that he was going to need some backup to get them to, in his own words, piss off and be someone else's problem. He didn't sound desperate or frantic. He just sounded annoyed. So I figured whatever it was couldn't be too serious. So, once I'd finished my immediate report, I gladly left the remaining work to one of my other coworkers, hopped on one of the park ATVs, and after checking a map to see where the trail even was, made my way there, admittedly going a bit fast for some of the passing 10-year-olds. Things already weren't looking great when I first pulled up to the trail. Right away, I could see that this particularly rough family consisted of a half-dozen kids, ranging from clear teenagers to kids no older than maybe 3 years old. Edgar was facing a full-on assault by a middle-aged looking woman screaming her head off, with what I assumed was her husband standing with his arms crossed looking like some kind of bouncer. I swear I could still hear her yelling over the motor of my ATV. Poor Edgar was just standing with his hands on his hips, and I swore I could see his hair graying in real time. Me being the idiot I was at the time, I jumped right into the fire. Almost everyone looked at me as I drove up, turned off the engine, and popped my flat hat onto my head. "Morning, everyone. Everything going all right?" I tried asking. I barely finished the sentence before the mother turned to me, her face red as she pointed back towards Edgar. "This man said that our kids aren't welcome here," she screamed. Out of the corner of my eye, I could see immediately Edgar's face flare, his arms go up in an unmistakable, "When did I say that?" gesture. I'll spare you the details of the finer points of that conversation. Most of it just involved me trying to calm everyone down, the parents screaming, and Edgar looking done with everything. The important detail was that of the 6 children, 3 of them were under the age of 13, one being 3 years old, one 7 years old, and the last one being 12. So obviously, no admission. When Edgar tried to enforce that, however, both parents proceeded to lambaste him, refusing to leave, and forced him to call me in. I couldn't tell you how long the disagreement went on, only that it was long enough that the kids must have decided that they were bored, and that at least some of them wanted to stick it to the park rangers who, in their minds, were ruining their family vacation. I was just resisting the urge to sigh after a recent accusation of me being stick-up when I noticed Edgar look over to the kids with an annoyed expression. Said expression changed to a look of cold, helpless terror in seconds. "Hey, stop! Don't you lift him over that gate!" he yelled before taking off. This wasn't some angry, disciplinary scream either. There was a genuine panic in his voice. Naturally, I follow his movements, trying to see what in the world had spooked this behemoth of a man so much. And what I see is one of the older teenagers, 16 I think, hoisting the 12-year-old on his shoulders. I wasn't exactly the smartest guy at 25, but even I could tell what their intent was. "Hey guys, let's get down from there, okay?" I tried calling out. Instead of listening, the teenager starts rushing his little brother over, yelling at him just to Go, go, go! With one leap, the 12-year-old clears the fence, rolls onto the ground, and books it into the woods. No! Hey, don't go in there! Come back! God, please come back! Edgar wailed. Yeah, you heard that right. Wailed. Not just that either. The guy was clutching onto the fence like it was a lifeline, shaking it so hard you could hear it rattling 2 towns over. The mom starts screaming out the kid's name, Donovan. Meanwhile, the dad is now trying to wrangle up the rest of his kids. Annoying as they were, I think seeing the 200-plus military guy start freaking out like that sold how bad of a mistake that was. At least, if it had affected them at least half as much as it did for me. Honestly, to that point, I just assumed that the trail had some of the dangerous plants or aggressive animals. But that didn't make guys like Edgar break down so badly. Not like that. I remember the teen that helped his brother over the fence, stammering out of a half-baked argument, saying everyone needed to go in to look for him. It didn't exactly take much of a genius to see what he was trying to do, so Edgar shut him down pretty quick. None of you are going in or out of that trail, he said coldly. Looking past the family, pointing at me for a brief second and said, Call the chief and get the sheriff on the line right now. Tell them that we need to start a code search ASAP. All these years later, I'm still not sure if it was anger or desperation in his voice. The next several hours consisted of a disorienting rush back to the ranger station, phone calls, and a scramble for trauma kits, maps, compasses, you name it. Within the span of a few hours, we had an entire quadrant of the park closed off, and specialized search and rescue teams were coordinating with our chief ranger to establish patrol patterns. To give you an idea of how serious this was, anyone under the age of 18 wasn't allowed to be within 50 feet of the staging area, not even the kids' teenage siblings. I remember hearing from someone that this was what made the teenage brother realize he had screwed up. A bit too late, but whatever. I was partnered up with Edgar, which was fine by me since he was actually registered to carry a weapon and I wasn't. If it feels like I'm jumping around a bit, I'm sorry. That day was... It was a really bad day. It was maybe 2 in the afternoon when we finally set out. Maybe 8 or 9 teams. Normally you start with a much lower number, but the chief insisted that when it came to Abernathy and Susan, they couldn't afford to wait around. I still wasn't even aware why this trail warranted such an extreme response, but seeing Edgar's earlier reaction made me pretty much willing to go along with anything. The first hour, maybe 2 hours of that search came up with absolutely nothing. Tree roots, scent of pine, occasional bit of mold or rotting carcass. Sometimes we'd even see movement and get excited, only to be let down once we realized it was just some small critter. We kept in contact with the other teams, of course, but they didn't have much luck either. He's got to be around here somewhere, right? I mean, how far could a 12-year-old really go? I asked, ducking under a low-hanging branch. Edgar just sighed, his gaze falling over an old set of fallen branches. Further than you'd think. 4:42. I still remember the time. I've been looking down at my watch to try to figure out how long we had been out there. I'd just eaten a peanut butter granola bar and stepped over a small ridge, using an old protrusion from a tree to steady myself when I first saw it. Movement. That alone probably wouldn't have caught my attention for more than a second or two, had it not been for one small detail. As whatever had caused that faint rustling of branches and cracking sticks had retreated deeper into the woods, I noticed the slightly hint of navy blue. During the brief, the chief had been insistent to mention that the kid was wearing a navy blue shirt, so naturally, I felt my heart soar. Holy crap, did I just find him? He's gonna be okay. I think we found him, I thought. Immediately rushing forward, I called out to Edgar to follow me first, losing sight of him as I awkwardly paced my steps on a downward slant. Donovan? I called out as I approached where I'd seen the out-of-place color. My spirit immediately fell when I realized that this spot of wood was just a collection of dried pine needles and some pine cones. Crap, I thought to myself as I looked up, placing my hands on my hips as I looked around. I still couldn't see Edgar. I could only see just the length of the trail that we had been assigned. Just as I was about to head towards the path again, I swore I heard a snapping branch. Instinctually, I turned towards the sound and froze. Between the cracks in the pine, I could see it again. The faintest hints of navy blue. But right beside it was what I swore was the slightest hint of a white sundress. Hello? I called out. No response. I swallowed a bit and tried to steady myself, my heart starting to beat a little bit faster. Park Rescue, Donovan. Is that you, buddy? For what felt like hours, I just stood there, watching the small bits of navy blue and white. This may sound pathetic, but something about that white dress, just barely visible in the cracks of the green, filled me with a lingering sense of dread. I wanted to go get him, bring him home, and just forget this day ever even happened. But even the thought made my palms sweat and my throat feel drier than an August dry season. God, I was so scared and I couldn't even understand why. Hey, you said you found something. Edgar's voice boomed over the canopy. With a start, I looked back towards him, seeing his massive frame leaning against the same tree I'd used moments before. Get it together, I thought, clearing my throat. Yeah, I thought I saw something. But as I turned around to look towards the small outcrop, they were gone. My brow furrowed as I tried to steady myself, looking in every direction only to see the pure, untamed greens and browns. Over here? I almost whispered. More on autopilot than anything, I slowly walked towards where I'd last seen them, my grip tightening around a heavy flashlight at my side. It just didn't make any sense, and I hadn't heard a sound. I'd only looked away for a split second and they were just gone. But how? Stepping into that outcrop, we both did. But I didn't get my answer. The small pocket of dirt stood at the fold of a large, steep hill, again with no sign of presence. Craning my neck to look up, I didn't see the navy blue again. But to my dismay, I see the slightest edge of whoever or whatever was wearing that sundress. She couldn't have been much older than the children themselves, yet as I watched, she, I think it was a she, easily scaled what must have been a solid 80-degree slant like it was nothing. I was just about to call out to her when I heard Edgar from behind me, somehow having failed to hear his approach.
Son of a...
I furrowed my brow and turned to face him, his face contorting into a deep, heartbroken scowl. Edgar, what's going on? I asked. I tried turning back around to see the girl again, but she was gone. Again, with no sound, no physical disturbance.
Did you see him with her?
Edgar asked, his voice a mix of cold resolution and despair. His position freaked me out so much, I wasn't even sure how to answer at first. When I did speak, it was a hesitant, low tone. I thought I saw hints of a navy blue shirt. Edgar cursed and kicked a loose rock, sending it tumbling down the unsteady incline as I took a step back.
Then he's as good as gone,
he bitterly moaned through grit teeth. Gone? I thought to myself. How could he possibly be gone? He was right here. I tried arguing that we could still catch up to him, but Edgar just insisted it was over. That all we could do now was just head back. No matter how much I debated, how much I insisted I had seen him right there and that we could catch him, he just denied any argument I made.
No point in chasing ghosts, kid.
His voice was low and somber when he said that. There was a chilling familiarity to his tone that made me realize I wasn't winning this argument. So, with spirits crushed and more questions than Edgar would even answer, we made our way back. The search lasted maybe a week before it was officially called off. Edgar and I never went back out. When the chief tried demanding we keep searching, Edgar just calmly explained what he saw, and I swear I saw him cry. We never found any trace of the kid or his mysterious friend. Poor Edgar quit maybe a month later. That's when I took over the gatekeeping duties, the patrolling. Every time I've gone out here, almost 20 years now, I hope I see some fleeting image of a navy blue shirt, the smallest peak of that strange figure in the sundress. And every time I walk back outside, completely disappointed and just a little more heartbroken. I can't tell you what that figure is, what it does to the kids that it takes, or when it starts hunting. Even Edgar didn't seem to know that much. But what little I've gathered tells me that whoever or whatever she is, she stays well and clear away from people. She's no threat. She doesn't get in your way. Heck, you don't even know she's there if you don't know about it. Unless, of course, you bring your younger than 13-year-old in. So, once again, I'm going to beg you. If you ever take a trip into Abernathy Pine Conservation Park, and you decide just to absolutely have to trek down Abernathy and Susan hiking trail, please, just leave your kids outside. Well, that is wrapping up the story. Wow. What do you guys think that mysterious woman in a white sundress is? Is it an evil demonic entity? A poltergeist? Is it a lost soul? Maybe a prior murder victim on that trail from years back that is yet to be explained. Bones that were never found to finally rest in peace. And if so, what explains the missing children? What does she do with these kids? Does she eat them? take their souls. Obviously, she's not that nice, or else she wouldn't be taking these kids. If anything, if she was a good spirit, she'd be helping these kids who are lost in the woods find their families, right? So I'm not really sure exactly what kind of entity it is, but it is some sort of spiritual, paranormal thing. Might be disguising itself as a young girl to lure these kids deeper into the woods to take them. Who knows? You let me know down in the comment below, and I will probably avoid hiking on any trails anywhere in the Midwest. 1, because I'm chicken, and 2, because I love tacos too much to care. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. If you want to really support us hardcore, hop on our Patreon and pick any tier that you want. And if you want to go to sleep with us tonight, hop on our Spotify. Tales from the Dark Forest. Have a good night, and I hope you all enjoyed tonight's story.